A story begins on an Autobot ship, escaping the atmosphere of Cybertron after so many failed campaigns to defend it. And the crew members are a very unlikely pair, but they're actually grateful. But right now, they're simply fleeing towards Doom's location, or towards this location, to where Ultron sentries are flanking them. But this is where we actually see them being blown out of the sky, as on the ship, Doctor Doom 2099, Optimus Prime, and Grimlock are all fleeing to locations. However, as Doom begins to explain what his plans are, he feels a sharp pain go right through him. Ultron, or at least a Ultron, went through the ship, stating that you will not escape his rule. You will all join him, become one with him, into which Optimus simply states, "No, Doom, this isn't how it ends." To which Ultron simply states, "Well, unfortunately, Optimus, you're the one that's going to have to be terminated. Can't corrupt you with that matrix." However, this is where Ultron gets smacked into a wall, and Grimlock intervenes, telling him, "No, you still have something to settle with me, Ultron." And so the two begin to go at it, duke it out. Grimlock overpowering Ultron, and Ultron simply states, "Oh, you are just perfect, aren't you? The ultimate rage machine. You are far, far better than the Green Goliath on this Earth, or that Earth, which I completely destroyed." To which Grimlock simply states, "Shut up and start fighting." And this is where Ultron simply states, "Why would I fight you? You'd be the perfect weapon." And Ultron begins to infect Grimlock as he tears through the final parts of this drone, if you will. And this is where Grimlock feels his rage boil over. It begins to manifest, but the ship goes through its portal. And this is where we head into the Rivals verse, or a focal point, the training area. Many heroes and their villainous allies are training, mastering their abilities, honing their skills, and some of them simply chatting it up. However, this is where someone sees this. Rocket. He sees the portal open and the ship come through, and he's like, guys, are we expecting anybody?" To which everyone looks, and this is where the ship crash lands at the top half of the training area. And this is where everyone's like, okay. To which Black Widow and Hawkeye simply state, "So, anyone know what it is?" But this is where Iron Man simply sees something, an Ultron drone. To which he says, this could actually be useful. It's been a while since we've seen Ultron, especially after he kind of kicked our butts. But right now, this actually seems like a perfect opportunity to use this, get some inside knowledge, and maybe a new ally." However, this is where someone comes flying out the ship, smacking Iron Man in the face. Optimus. And he simply states, "Oh, great. Now I have to deal with this again." And this is where everyone hears a beastly roar, and Grimlock bursts through the ship and simply says, "All hail Ultron." To which Magic is like, he's interesting. Quite strong, if I might add. And seems to be a warrior class. Very intriguing. To which Grimlock actually begins charging at the rest of the heroes. And this is where Hulk is simply like, been a while since I fought anybody strong. To which the thing is like, I'm right here. And Hulk's like, "Anyway, I got this, guys." And so this is where Captain America and a few other heroes actually go to check on Optimus, as Grimlock and the Hulk engage each other in a bare knuckle brawl. However, this gets a little out of hand here. You see, when the two clash, it produces a shockwave that begins to level the area, and they just go back and forth, slugging each other over and over again. And this is where the others, or at least I would probably say around maybe Black Widow, simply states, "Hey, get in there and help him. This isn't going to end well for our training area." To which this is where Magic, Storm, and Groot all begin to jump in and begin to attack Grimlock along with the Hulk. Storm actually uses her electricity, while Magic actually utilizes a demon to try and hold them, and Groot tries to restrain him with his vines. However, this makes Grimlock angrier, makes him stronger. And Hulk's like, oh, he's just like me. To which Grimlock simply states, all hail Ultron. And you can actually hear him fighting these words. And this is where Storm is like, he seems to be fighting the control. Quick, Hulk, make it matter. To which Hulk's like, I got just the thing. And actually begins punching Grimlock right in the face. Yeah, super helpful. Yeah. You know, Hulk's going to be pretty helpful here with that one. And so he begins to do this over and over again as the others try to restrain him. However, it makes him madder. It makes his aura, his rage aura, just kind of go berserk here. And Grimlock, boom, just bursts through everything. The first person he sets eyes on is Groot, slicing him right down the middle. Don't worry, he'll be okay, because, you know, Groot can regenerate from stuff like that. But again, he's pretty much out the fight for a little bit. The next person is Storm. Storm conjures up an electric tornado and shoots it at him. However, Grimlock actually opens his hands, puts his arms out wide, and thunderclaps. Keep in mind, considering Grimlock's metallic organic skin, this is a very loud thunderclap here. And this not only knocks out Storm, but this hurts everybody that can, you know, pretty much hear this. Only one I think is possibly safe from this is Iron Man at the moment, who's actually busy looking at the Ultron dome. And he simply states, wow. Everybody okay? To which Human Torch is like, no. Clearly not. Oh, my ears. And this is where it's just Magic, who actually tries to come from a behind angle, or tries to attack Grimlock from behind, and actually utilizes her Soul Sword. However, Grimlock counters with his Ion Blade. And this is where they actually get into a battle of swords and actually showing off their skill. This is where Iron Fist then jumps in, and the two actually begin to do a melee, or I guess you could say a 2-against-1 melee against Grimlock. However, one thing about Cybertron is that they are fast learners. They're not only good at copying skills, but actually utilizing them against their opponents. And keep in mind, Grimlock in the Fall of Cybertron franchise, or in the Aligned Continuity, is a champion gladiator, meaning his fighting style is gladiatorial pit combat. Basically, a knight with a sword and shield, but with the aggression and ruthlessness of a barbarian. I mean, that's the best way I could put, like, Cybertronian pit fighting. And keep in mind, Grimlock's known as a master of it in this field, along with Megatron. So, this is where Grimlock not only begins to copy Iron Fist's, or at least, you know, assimilate Iron Fist's ninjutsu, or kung fu, excuse me. This is where he also begins to copy Magic's more demon-like combat style. And so Grimlock actually begins to subtly apply this in his own, making him not only more difficult, but a lot more dangerous. This is where he then begins to single them out. When Iron Fist actually goes in for a jumping, or, you know, pretty much a spear kick, Grimlock actually utilizes his shield and knocks him right out with it. Straight up just backhands it with it, like mid-thrust, or not mid-thrust, excuse me. I guess you could say like mid-jump as well. Leaving just Magic. Magic actually begins to get overwhelmed by the heavier strikes. This is where Grimlock then pretty much just disarms her, and then simply uppercuts her right into the top half of the training area, knocking her out. And this is where the others begin to jump in, with the Fantastic Four actually pulling off their Hulk combo of him. Restraining him with Reed Richards, Sue Storm manages to restrain his head long enough for Human Torch to actually, well, try to suck the oxygen out of him, but that was pretty much a bad move. To which even he realized, like, oh wait, he's metallic, isn't he? To which she's like, yes, I was giving you an opening for a supernova bomb. If you guys don't know what that means, this is where Sue Storm actually contains the opponent. Johnny goes supernova, but actually pours that energy into the sphere and, well, pops everything. Meanwhile, Iron Man simply states, okay, well, since nothing is pretty much working right now, Hulk, you think you can possibly beat him and maybe contain this as well? To which Hulk's like, beat him? I don't know. I'm kind of actually enjoying this, though. To which this is where he goes into his world breaker state and simply thunderclaps Grimlock so hard his sword and shield go flying in different directions. However, Grimlock gets up, and this just continues to add on to his rage. Keep in mind, this aura, this primal rage here, is enough to keep up with this world breaker state. And, well, they begin slugging it out while Sue Storm, or Invisible Woman, actually contains it the best she can. This is where others chime in, like Scarlet Witch utilizing her magic, Doctor Strange as well. And then this is where Magneto finally decides to step in and actually begins restraining Grimlock with his magnetism. And this is where Magneto says, interesting, his alloy, it's not like anything I've ever seen. However, this is where Grimlock simply feels Magneto's pull. And keep in mind, he's not saying all hail Ultron anymore, and simply states, still fighting that control, mind you, get off me, and actually bursts out of Magneto's grasp. And this is where he actually knocks Hulk like clean on his back, grabs him, and then smacks him into Magneto, with Hulk saying, yeah, my bad. And this is where Magic simply goes back in, using a portal, and simply states, we're not done yet, Beast. And she actually tries to use her soul sword on him. However, Grimlock jumps back and then simply like hammer fists her right into the ground. However, this is where Optimus finally comes in and simply states, face me. And Grimlock turns to him, about to slice him in half. But Optimus knows what he's been through at this point. So Optimus plays upon that. You really just gonna let him control you like that? After escaping Shockwave and saving your team, I understand we lost so much. But I didn't think you lose yourself as well. And this is where Captain America's like, a real leader right there. To which, after a while, Optimus simply states, I understand you and I have our differences. And I understand maybe we won't work through them right away. But right now, I need to know if you're still with me, old friend. Do you hear me? To which Grimlock finally calms down and simply states, yeah, I hear you. Oh, that hurts. To which this is where Emma Frost comes in and states, okay, now with that out of the way, may I ask, who are you? And are you working for Ultron? To which Optimus then simply explains that, well, he's Optimus Prime and he's Grimlock. However, this is where someone else comes out of the rubble, regenerating, and that would be Doom 2099. To which he states, self-regenerating molecular armor. Quite an advancement. To which Magneto's like, so, you've allied yourselves with Doom. Might I ask why before I try to rip you apart? To which Grimlock says, yeah, you could try that. And this is where Optimus simply states, he helped us escape from Ultron. Said that we would be needed here. We'd be vital in helping everyone get their homes back. Your Wakandas and Asgards or whatever. To which this is where Adam Warlock simply steps in and simply states, I've actually been working with Doom to actually get these guys away from Ultron. They're the strongest of their world. And with everything happening in the multiverse, these guys are going to be very vital. To which Hulk is like, so you brought me an actual sparring partner for once. To which Thing is like, dude, come on. What did I do? To which Hulk is like, anyway, I like them. They seem cool. To which Captain America simply states, well, that doesn't explain everything. We need to actually know if they're on the up and up, or if Doom is on the up and up. What happened? To which Doom simply explains, well, let me explain to you, and simply shows this universe's story. You see, this universe had its Avengers and someone else, the Autobots and Decepticons. They had their war, the usual Cybertron storyline. However, Ultron himself was still created like in canon. And unfortunately, Ultron not only won, but destroyed Earth, seeking this planet known as Cybertron, which was discovered by this world's Iron Man. And when he did, he came prepared. utilizing the technology he gained along the way, he was able to catch everyone off guard, assimilating himself into the dead planet and taking hold of it. However, it didn't stop there. He began corrupting Cybertronians individually now that he had more time to study them and was working with the notorious Decepticon scientist, Shockwave, who Ultron himself said was more complex than he thought, was more like him than he thought. But you see, Ultron envied the Cybertronian race. Machines that could feel emotion combined with anything. He wanted that. He eventually became that, becoming Ultron Prime, a being that can not only feel, but express himself. But he still wanted all organic life gone. And while he did offer the Autobots a chance to surrender and assimilate with him peacefully, they did not. And so their new campaign, with the Decepticons now more enhanced than before, they eventually lost. And Grimlock and Optimus were the last two Autobots to actually survive. I was able to find them just in the nick of time, just when they were about to go into their final stand, and I managed to get them out of there. The reason why they're here before you today is because of me. They can help you. They will help you. I explained to it as well as we were fixing a ship up and me using my technopathy to keep Ultron at bay. They know what's going on with your realms. Asgard being taken over by Zeus. Wakanda by Killmonger. Krakoa by Apocalypse. And Okara by Fin Fang Foom. Indeed, it's many wonderful things. But let's also not forget about Dracula with the Darkhold. Seemingly less and more stuff to come. But right now, these Cybertronians, my bad, Optimus and Grimlock, the strongest of them, are here to help you. And they will be great allies in your endeavors. So, if you guys want, you can pretty much just, well, I don't know, let them go. Let them be on their way and they'll find a way to beat Ultron themselves. But if you guys want your realms back and want an actual edge in war, then look no further than the experts in that department. And while some of them contemplate what Doom said, they realize he is right. But this is where Mr. Fantastic notes, if you guys are Cybertronian and living technology, I would love to study it. You guys seem more advanced than even Vision. To which Sue was like, now, honey, take it easy. Right now, they look injured, tired, and I'm not even sure if they're hungry or not. I don't know what they eat. To which Grimlock's like, I can eat metal, so I'll be fine. Probably eat the flying one over there. To which Iron Man pulls up a mask and is like, I'm human. But, yeah, I would definitely like to study you guys if you guys would not mind. To which Optimus simply states that Grimlock has been through that enough. While he might be a little bit more advanced than me, I am willing to participate in such things, not to reopen any old wounds. To which this is where thing is like, alright, so he gets to study. Hey, how about when you get yourself fixed up, you and me go a few rounds in the lower level. Besides, I'd like to test somebody who can throw Hulk into Magneto like that. To which Grimlock is like, yeah, sure, why not? Who's gonna fix me? To which Rocket's like, oh, I'll happily volunteer to do that. To which Grimlock is like, he's gonna steal parts from me, is he? To which Star-Lord is like, maybe. And Mantis is like, oh yeah, definitely. So Grimlock rolls his eyes and just sits on an operating table, letting Rocket fix him up. But that's not where we end off here. We end off with Cybertron, now fully red and a part of Ultron's new galactic empire. And this is where we actually see someone sitting on a Cybertronian throne, Ultron Prime, surrounded by a few things, drones, Then there's Shockwave working on the side. But this is where he simply states, now that you see that my power is unmatched, are you ready to share your secrets? And this is where Megatron, bound in restraint, simply states, alright, you win. But only on one condition. You give me your army. And that's where we're going to leave off here, you guys. What's Megatron going to share with Ultron Prime? How is this going to affect Transformers now being with the Avengers, X-Men, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Fantastic Four? And how would they be able to save all the other worlds? Peace.